back at a regular time, 9 a.m. here on the East Coast. For those watching us live, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm a little tired, still not going to lie, JB, but for good reasons here. The Ghilardi show, aside from naming Jake Breitbach a new quarterback, which we fixed in the subsequent versions that we've put out.
Multi-talented.
Yeah, he is. He's very good. There's no doubt about that. But we had to put together an 8.5-minute intro, which is kind of a weird scenario because of the 20 semifinalists. But as I sat there doing it, I really thought to myself, you know, there was a time not that long ago when there were only about 30-something, low 30s, nominations for the entire trophy. And we've been sitting here harping on this trophy for how many years now? Like, come on, schools, get your nominations in. Got to do it. Come on, you got to do it. And finally, the floodgates open. And maybe it's the fifth-year scenario. I don't know what exactly led to it.
Yeah.
But 60-plus, and to have 20 semifinalists at that point. Okay, you know what? We did some good work. So did Pat at D3 Football to get this thing promoted. Mm-hmm. The Ghilardi Trophy stronger than ever, I think, when you have that kind of pool of talent to select from, not just as nominees, but semifinalists as well. What'd you think of the list? We'll get to the specifics later, but I mean, what'd you think of everything yesterday?
You know, I thought the show was fantastic. I mean, that highlight reel starting off with, I mean, I still think, I mean, we've made a lot of great memories over the last 15 years doing this, but I know for you personally that Ghilardi Trophy delivery that you did for Ethan Greenfield last year was probably up there in the top 5, and what a cool moment. And you know, I kind of miss the days of old where, you know, there would be like the formal sit-down dinner and the whole, you know, pomp and circumstance with the Ghilardi Trophy, but there was something more organic about that. And so opening the show with that, and then that fantastic highlight reel of all these great plays, you know, some of the videos even, you know, looked familiar from our show. I was like, oh yeah, I remember when Frank shot that, or there might have been, you know, something of Tucker Horn that I shot. You know, it was funny. When I was at that Trinity Berry game where he went 26 for 33, I didn't realize he had that good a game. I mean, I knew that Trinity had to fight back to win it, and it was a fantastic football game. But looking back on what's happened this season, it was like, wow, I was actually there for one of the best, you know, statistical performances you could argue, you know, of the season. So it's been a really fun year. I think, you know, we've seen a lot of great plays, a lot of great players, and you know, honestly, you know, at the end of the day, the bummer is that there can only be one. You know, there's only going to be one national champion. There can only be one Ghilardi Trophy winner. The semifinalist list of 20 guys, all of them are fantastic. All of them are deserving. Trying to narrow it down to 4 or 5 is tough. But you know, once again, you know, it was funny because I just saw Dave McHugh tweet about this before. Can we just focus on, you know, congratulating the people who are finalists and not, you know, crapping on them and saying that so-and-so was a better quarterback or so-and-so was a better player? Maybe just instead say something like, hey, congratulations to these 5. Your families and your programs must be thrilled for you. I really liked so-and-so too. You know, they didn't get it, but hey, they had a great season. Here's all their stats. Like, well, I don't understand. There's been this year like so much trolling and negativity. It's driving me nuts, and I would really like next season to be a different story. And yeah, I think that's you know, as Forrest Gump would say, that's all I got to say about that.
Well, you know, this is why we focus to start the show on all 20 semifinalists, and then end the show with focus on the semifinalists again, because when it gets down to it, that's the whole thing. You are of the elite in Division III of 25,000 football players, give or take.
25,000, yeah.
I mean, you are of the elite. And so that's the thing we try to focus on, honestly. And, you know, we hope, as you said, that there's more focus on the accolades they deserve, the semifinalists, and then ultimately the finalists. As I sit here, I still don't know who won. I have my guess as to who won, but I have not asked for the details. Neither did Pat. Well, we've been
we're on the same page with that. I think well, yeah, of course we have. I mean, you never really know until the thing is announced, but I think we know. But we'll see.
We will find out next week. And If it's somebody in the game, we're going to have to find a new way to do this, because obviously a cat's out of the bag. If I start showing up at random locations, people are like, oh, where's my trophy? And that's not going to work very well anymore. So we'll see how we're going to do this next week down in Salem. Good to be back there for Stag Bowl 50. JB, Curt Fitzpatrick scheduled to join us today from Cortland. And we're going to have a modified version of Crunch Time where we'll just kind of take it a little slower here and talk about the games, how we got to the semifinals we have, and do the tail of the tape as always here. So a great hour, or maybe even a little short an hour today coming up here. It's Season 16 semifinal week upcoming of In the Huddle. Yeah, something Season 16 is one for the books for a lot of different reasons. We went from chalk to, 3 road teams winning in the quarterfinals, I think it was last week, out of 4 games. And that's an interesting change of pace. Granted, that doesn't mean upsets necessarily, because clearly North Central was a favorite going to La Crosse. And, you can say what you want about Cortland Alma. It probably was a pick 'em when you really looked at that game. On paper at least, and then Randolph-Macon, Johns Hopkins, same situation. So the road team doesn't necessarily mean underdog anymore, but still, that proverbial 2.5 points you get for hosting, it's not necessarily playing out the way those odds makers think it should. Anyway, you saw the quarterfinals last week, your 30,000-foot view of them.
Well, I think we got one of the best quarterfinal weekends that we've seen in a while. I mean, I'd heard Greg Thomas from D3Football.com get asked, is this the best we've seen? And he was struggling to think of, prior years where the competition measured up, because really we had 2 games that came down to 3 points. In fact, one was kind of a game-winning field goal on the final play. We had the shootout of shootouts between Cortland and Alma, which was 34-34 at halftime. I mean, it was just lights out, almost arena football style, just long touchdown here, long touchdown there. But the game was pretty close for the whole time. We had even North Central had to sweat it out a little bit, and it kind of took a fluky onside kick ball that bounced right into D'Angelo Hardy's hands that he ran back for a touchdown to make that score look like that game wasn't as close as it really was, because La Crosse was hanging in there, and Kaiser Helterbrand, a guy who's had a fantastic season, another Gagliardi semifinalist, really was helping his team stay in that game, and really gave North Central probably their best game since they played Carnegie Mellon in the quarterfinals. I mean, I know everyone points to that sort of fourth quarter against Mount Union in the Stag Bowl, but I still feel like from a full game perspective, that was really the toughest test they've had. Wheaton fans may want to argue, that they give North Central a pretty good run for their money, and they have in the past. But in recent playoff games, that was probably the closest call that the Cardinals have had in a while.
Yeah, it's. I'm not going to reveal what I'm picking later, but let's just say that I think the Wheaton game gave us a little indication, not a huge one. And then the Trinity game to a certain degree also. And now definitely in the La Crosse game, that there is a weakness for North Central is the defense. That they can give up points. And so, can somebody stifle the offense too? Because a Wartburg team coming in defensively...
I just realized one of the best games of the weekend was Wartburg-Whitewater, where I started off feeling, kind of, looks like I'm going to go 4-0 this weekend because Whitewater is up 21-3. Not so fast, my friends. Owen Grover and company battle back, and the Rockford brothers, man, those two, what a tag team combination that they had. One of them, leading the team with tackles, one making a key interception to basically seal the win for the Knights. And this Wartburg team is for real. We had kind of been doubters, I guess. We weren't necessarily sold on them with a few close calls in the ARC conference race, and their offense wasn't necessarily clicking all the time like we thought from last year, but here they are, second year in a row, back in the semifinals, and they have as legitimate a shot to knock off the champs as any other team, I guess. I mean, it's going to be a battle. You'll see in the tail of the tape, it'll jump right off the page on as far as what's going on in this one. But congratulations to the Knights. What a fantastic comeback. And they're excited to host the semifinal game on Saturday in Waverly.
Let me take the stage here for a second, because we're going to start on the right side of the brackets here in honor of the fact we have a guest. They'll be joining us in a few minutes. He's already in the queue, so that's good to see. No technical difficulties yet on this show, but I'm sure we'll find a way to screw something up. Don't worry. But it's not true crunch time. There's my technical difficulty. I can't talk. But it's not true crunch time today. It is going to be essentially just kind of a more laid-back version of going through the quarterfinal games. And so let's start on the right side of the bracket to talk about Cortland versus Alma. And in the first quarter, a minute 22 into the game, Devin Frenchko gets a 47-yard touchdown pass from Carter St. John. We show you this because St. John was not in for most of this game. He got injured in this game, but they led 6-0 at this point, Alma did. Cortland would answer. Joe Iadaveo, I believe is the correct pronunciation. A 15-yard touchdown pass from Zach Boyes tied the game at 6 apiece. Now, upcoming, we're not going to show you all 7 touchdowns of the second quarter between these teams, but Zach Poff gets a 3-yard touchdown pass from backup Trent Devereaux. 20-13 at this point, Alma with the lead. So, a response comes from J.J. Lapp, getting the touchdown pass from Zach Boyes with 10:34 left in the second quarter to make it 20 apiece. This thing was just wild in this second quarter. We're going to go up to 56 seconds left in the second quarter. Jaden Alfano St. John, a 2-yard touchdown run, gives Cortland a 34-27 lead. But watch this. 26 seconds later, just 2 plays later, Trent Devereaux finds Ty Lauderman for a 55-yard touchdown pass. 34 apiece, and mercifully, we go to halftime tied at 34 apiece. Cortland, though, turns it on. Third quarter, 13:01 left. Joe Iadaveo, again, a 3-yard touchdown pass from Zach Boyes. Made it 41-34, Cortland. And then the defense for Cortland steps up. Here's 3rd and goal for Alma, and Trent Devereaux is sacked by Nick Lardero, and he fumbles the ball. Anthony Luciano is credited with the recovery, and that led to a Cortland touchdown later. Capone gets a 2-yard rushing touchdown, but later on in the fourth quarter, here's Cole Burgess with a 50-yard touchdown pass from Zach Boyes. You know the rest of the story in this one pretty much. 58-41, Cortland beating Alma. And JB, this game, honestly, when you look at it, as St. John did have 274 total yards, 1 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. Zach Boyes, 24 for 33, 400 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. I'll give you a second here to talk about this game before we go to the other game on the right side of the bracket. But this thing was wild in the first half. But that Cortland defense making adjustments in the second half was the key to victory in my book.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the math, I mean, the second half, I think they only allowed, 7 points? So whatever Coach, Fitz and company did at halftime worked because they were able to slow that explosive Alma offense down. Because in the first half, they were kind of running wild on the secondary and getting open and scoring on quick plays. But really, the defense for Cortland came through. That turnover that they forced was really critical. It allowed them to get that sort of 2 possession cushion that they needed and basically kind of hung on from there. But what a fantastic college football game. I had that one up on the big screen downstairs through the Alma broadcast, the YouTube thing, and it was really well done. Just a great game. And hey, look at first time ever Cortland Dragons are in the Final Four, the semifinals. They've been in the playoffs a lot. It's funny, last week on the tail of the tape, I had and this is a common theme for me this year, I had the wrong information on the slides, what their playoff record was, but I was correct in that Coach Fitzpatrick's record was up there. It was, I think, 31-4 overall. Now he's 32-4, so he's won 32 out of his last 36 games and has a chance to maybe get a little revenge on one of those 4 losses with a rematch. I mean, who knew that a rematch from round 1 of last year's playoffs would end up being for a trip to the Stag Bowl for both of these teams, Cortland versus Randolph-Macon in Ashland, Virginia.
Well, let's talk about the other game on that side of the bracket, and that is Randolph-Macon at Johns Hopkins. This game wild as well. Second quarter, 48 seconds into it, David Wallace gets a 30-yard touchdown pass from Drew Campanelli to take a 7-3 lead for Randolph-Macon. We'll go to the broadcast for the next highlight, and this is Mitchell Johnson getting a 59-yard touchdown run to extend that lead to 14-3 for Randolph-Macon, 8:40 left, second quarter. So Johns Hopkins down by 11 points at this point in the game. Eventually, we will hear from Will Leger. Bay Harvey passes a 30-yard touchdown pass to him for a 14-9 deficit. Johns Hopkins trying to make up still at that point. But Randolph-Macon, before halftime, would get another touchdown. Queasy Clark, a 10-yard touchdown pass from Campanelli. That made it 21-9 at halftime. But Johns Hopkins would come back. Will Leger again from Bay Harvey. This 44-yard touchdown pass to the tight end made it 21-15. Johns Hopkins trailing by 6 points at this point. And then the defense steps up for Johns Hopkins as Drew Campanelli, as you see him here, he looks to pass, is flushed out, and then off the back foot throws an interception. Oliver Craddock with that interception. And that is major here because it would lead to eventually, with 7:06 left third quarter, Spencer Ugler's 27-yard touchdown run to give Hopkins a 22-21 lead, their first lead since 3-0 in the game. Third quarter, though, still not over. 42 seconds left. And again, David Wallace, a 28-yard touchdown pass this time from Drew Campanelli, would make it 29-22 in favor of Randolph-Macon. Back and forth we went as the fourth quarter began here. 11:32 left in the fourth quarter. It'll be Josh Polsey with a 3-yard touchdown pass from Bay Harvey. That would tie us again at 29 apiece. 4 minutes later, though, Mitchell Johnson once again with a long touchdown run, this time from 43 yards. It's 36-29, Randolph-Macon leading with 7:24 left. And then eventually, Johns Hopkins with a 12-play, 5-minute and 46-second drive on 4th and goal has Bay Harvey just stick the football over the goal line, and he is credited with the touchdown to tie it. They do not go for two. They tie the game 36-36. Randolph-Macon would get the ball back. They would drive down the field. Kyle Illy with the 34-yard field goal attempt as they had to rush the field goal unit onto the field, and he just tucks it over the left upright. Video shows in other video that it was indeed good, and that would give them a 39-36 lead. One final opportunity for Johns Hopkins coming up here as they credit the scoreboard, and you can see the ball bouncing on the kickoff, and they try to do the old lateral game, and about 2 or 3 laterals into this, you're going to see the ball get knocked away out of bounds. The celebration will ensue for Randolph-Macon on the road, and it's 39-36 final. Randolph-Macon beating Johns Hopkins. And in this game, it was Bay Harvey, 33 for 44, 367 yards, 3 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. Randolph-Macon's offense rushed for 255 yards, though, with Drew Campanelli getting 3 passing touchdowns and just 1 interception in the game. JB, great job there by Randolph-Macon. But, hey, the resilience of Johns Hopkins in that game, down 21-9 at halftime, able to come up to 22-21. Got to say to Greg Camara's team, great try. But obviously, Randolph-Macon, the better in that game, in a very deliberate, paced offense, it felt at times. It was Drew Campanelli throwing a lot of balls away. I don't know, exactly what the philosophy was. We asked them in the post-game press conference, live to fight another day, I guess, to a certain degree, but they definitely didn't want to make a mistake, it felt like, in knowing that you saw the back foot pass get intercepted by Oliver Craddock in that highlight package. They didn't want to make those types of mistakes, and that was pretty much the only mistake he made all day.
Yeah, and I had a feeling that Campanelli would have to have some passing touchdowns for them to be able to win this game. I thought that Hopkins would bottle up or at least focus in on the run game. end of day, Randolph-Macon's strength has been the run all season. It has been for a couple of seasons now, and that big offensive line is a big reason for that. But it did feel like, without Campanelli sort of finding little holes here and there when he had to in the defense and making those pass plays, that they probably wouldn't have won that game. So it was a very balanced attack, and the Cortland Red Dragons defense is going to have their hands full with a team that's in certain ways very similar to what Alma brought to the table, with a great quarterback and a strong offensive defensive line that's going to make things interesting.
Well, let's talk to Curt Fitzpatrick, head coach of the Cortland Red Dragons. Already on the road, already, I believe, in Virginia. And, Coach, you saw the package there. I think you have a statement you'd like to make first about how we use turnover margin as a very good indicator on this show of who should win or lose football games. Go right ahead. Let us know what you think about that.
No, I just like to give you guys a hard time. I believe JB did pick the Cortland victory, predict the Cortland victory last week. So props to you, JB. No, I just think playoff football is different. Turnover margin is accumulated over the course of the regular season. And we all know when you get to the playoffs, it's different football. You're playing very good people. It's a one game season, how Alma played against some of the teams in their schedule had no bearing, their turnover margin against some of the teams in their conference have no bearing on playing Cortland. And ours, turnovers are such a fickle thing, and in a one-game season in the playoffs, whoever wins the turnover margin in that game, I agree, has a great chance to win. But I don't believe that prior success or failures in turnover margin indicate the success or failure in that one-game season. So I appreciate that, because it fired our players up. And our offensive goal last week was to turn the ball over 0 times. And if we turn the ball over 0 times, then we lose the turnover margin. So, and then our defense forced some key turnovers, as you guys showed very well in the highlight package, which was basically the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the third and fourth quarters, JB, you go ahead. But I just want to say that defense, the way they turned things around with the adjustments was incredible. But go ahead, JB.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask a little bit about that, so it was a good lead-in. I mean, what did you tell the guys at halftime? I mean, you had like this crazy back and forth, was 68-point first half, and you guys gave up a touchdown on 2 plays with under a minute to go. What did you kind of talk to the and you were giving up touchdowns to the backup quarterback? I mean, how did you guys kind of keep your heads on straight and not get a little dejected or a little frustrated? I'm sure you were frustrated, but what was sort of the message at halftime? I'm like, okay, guys, is it a new ball game because it's basically 0-0?
Yeah, exactly. It would have been easy for us to kind of sulk defensively and hang our heads, but the reality was we're in a football game, and we talk about, every coach in America probably talks about playing 60 minutes, and you got to play 4 quarters and make it a 4-quarter game. Well, if we're going to talk about that stuff, then in moments of adversity, when you're up by 4 touchdowns at halftime, it's that you don't need to come together at those points. But we needed to rally at halftime. Alma, credit to Coach Couch and their offensive staff and their offense. That's a tremendous offense on that. They play with tempo. They're a very fast-paced team. They play with tempo that's hard to simulate. We're a no-huddle offense, but we don't choose to go as fast as they do. So it's hard for our defensive guys to simulate. We were playing with some young players too. We had a freshman safety, true freshman, making his first start in the secondary, and it was rough out there in the first half in some moments.
Sure.
And credit to Alma for making it as hard as they did on us. But at halftime, we just wanted to regroup, and just because they scored 34 points the first half didn't mean we had to let them score 34 the second half. We just had to play one drive at a time and trust that our offense was going to keep scoring. We just got to find a way to win by 1 point. That's what we always talk about. And I think in playoff football, that's what's the most important, is not the stats, but just finding a way to finish with 1 more point than the other team.
Where did you find Joe Iadiveo from? I believe that's the way you pronounce it. And where's he been all season? Because he was a very important guy in this whole victory with those 2 touchdowns that we showed in crunch time. I don't know if he had a third one or not, but the 2 that we showed, it was 3 total. That may foretell a JB MVP type of scenario later. We'll see what happens with that. But where did Joe come from?
Joe Iadivio is how you pronounce it. I think hard to pronounce. Joe is a terrific young man. He's a story where he was as a very talented player, Plain Edge High School in Long Island, tremendous, all Long Island caliber player, and he's a great example of just working and waiting your turn to play. He was behind the depth chart, behind Rashad Tucker and CJ Messina, basically for the last 2 years. Joe's a sophomore. We always felt like he was a starting caliber player and just needed an opportunity. I had a couple of injuries to Rashad and CJ, and Joe stepped right in and we haven't missed a beat with him playing in the slot for us. So we knew he was a good player all along. There was just some guys ahead of him, and Joe, to his credit, was ready to go. He's a great teammate, plays tough and physical. When we have Burgess and Lapp get a lot of attention out there on the field, and so when Joe got his opportunities, he capitalized. And such a big game player, plays great on special teams too, stuff that guys don't really get credit for a lot. But he's covering kicks and punts and doing all the kind of the gritty, tough things that we need for our team to be successful too. So just very happy for Joe. He's a great young man, great family, and just happy for him that he was able to deliver for our team last week.
Well, yeah, and he did, and we'll talk a little bit about a little more about him in a little bit. But Coach, one of the things, I mean, each season is in and of itself. They're unique, different guys because players come and go, and now with what we're seeing already in the transfer portal, every year might be just a totally different deal. Keeping guys for 4 years may be a thing of the past. It's just kind of the world we're living in. But did you ever think, and now that you're back in Ashland, that game from last year's playoffs, like here we are again? Is that sort of ironic? How does the team feel about basically having a kind of a quote unquote second chance here? To take care of the Yellow Jackets. How are the Dragons feeling right now to be back in Ashland?
Well, I mean, we're excited to be playing in the semifinals, no matter who we're playing. It's kind of funny how it all works. That the dealing with that loss last year was kind of a catalyst for this season and this team, and kind of was a launch pad for knowing what we had to get better at, and kind of the motivation for trying to grow as a team and to be able to win tough games on the road. And I think we're better this year for having lost that game. A revenge factor. I don't know if our players see it like that necessarily. I mean, I'm sure they're excited to play. We're excited to play anybody at this point. Randolph-Macon's a terrific team. Holy cow, they're as good up front as any team I've seen in a few years. Their offensive line, they run the ball with physicality. Very sound on defense. So, it's our players are excited to play. It's we're familiar with their stadium and kind of the setup down here. So that part is actually pretty convenient because we know what to expect. But the inconvenient part is that Randolph-Macon is very good. So they make it hard. Coach Aruza is a very, very good football coach, and their staff does a great job. They're a hard team to play against, and they're very deserving to be here, as I believe we are as well. So going to be a great football game.
Well, we're going to look at your favorite part of our show here, our tail of the tape, and maybe I'll leave one of these out at this point. But let's look at how this matchup does go here. Offensively, you have a slight edge, but I mean that's barely anything there. About 500 yards per game for both of you, which is incredible for an entire season. Defensively, you give up a few more yards, 64 yards basically. But you look at this quarterback comparison, and Zach Boyce with 44 touchdowns, 8 on the ground, and 5 interceptions versus Campanelli's 25 and 5 interceptions. Although, as you pointed out, their running game is a different dynamic compared to yours to a certain degree. Turnover margin, 14 to 18. We won't even talk about it. But point differential, plus 35, plus 28. But there is an argument to be made that your schedule may have been slightly more difficult during the regular season than their schedule, although there's always arguments about Region 3, Region 2 situations like that and whatnot. But, it's a very even game on paper, Coach. It really is. Yep. And how does this team compare to Alma, where you did end up getting some distance finally in that game? It sounds to me like what you were saying earlier, Alma, a much more lightning pace type of team. Randolph-Macon, maybe, at least what I saw last week, a much more deliberate type of team, it felt like. Kind of compare and contrast, and what can you take forward from last week and use this week?
We definitely learned a lot from last week's game, especially defensively for sure. But you're right on the money there, Frank. Both teams are very effective offensively, but very different. Tempo, Randolph-Macon is a little bit more deliberate. Alma was all about tempo. They want to go as fast as they can. There were times last week where the ball was spotted and they were snapping the ball within 5 seconds of the ball being spotted. Randolph-Macon is a little bit more deliberate. They're, some different styles of plays too, with their play action game, a little bit more concepts. Alma was, kind of a quick play action shot team. They have a very fast receiver in Frenchco, who we had to, gave us some problems, scored their first touchdown. Randolph-Macon has an outstanding receiver as well, and David Wallace, number 7, about as fast as a receiver as there is in the country. So there are some similarities, but a lot of differences too. They make it hard to defend. Both teams, I said this last week in an interview, I think both teams make it hard to defend because you got to try to defend the run and a speedy receiver at the same time. That you got to solve 2 problems at once, which is difficult, and it's doable, but it puts a lot of stress on the defenders. And I think people have the same problem when they try to defend us too. With our receivers and our running game, the combination, the balance of Randolph-Macon is they pose some problems, and we're going to have to play great defensively up front, led by our defensive line. Nick Lardaro had a great game last week. We're going to need our front 7 to play extremely well, better than they've played all year, to win this game. And I think those guys are excited for that challenge.
And David Wallace, by the way, you point out in the postgame, we learned that he gets mad when he doesn't get the ball, basically driving Drew Campanelli and Coach Veruza crazy with the idea that, hey, I'm open every play, or I need to get this ball every play. I've never heard of a receiver like
that,
Yeah, I've never either. I'm sure Cole Burgess is not that guy out there.
We may have a couple guys that have that mindset too,
Yeah, absolutely. JB, go ahead.
Well, Coach, one of the things that really stood out to me, kind of tongue-in-cheek talking about the turnover margin thing, is that Zach Boyce, who maybe us guys on the show will remember, the current players may not have heard of a guy named Brett Favre, but Zach Boyce is kind of like a Brett Favre quarterback to me because the way he makes plays and just the way he can throw the ball and find receivers and just, a consummate gamer. Would you say that was his best game of the season? I mean, he threw for basically 400 yards. He had 5 passing touchdowns. I mean, it's an amazing, on the biggest stage, he really came up big. 0 interceptions, which in a playoff game is always huge. What were your thoughts on Zach's performance last Saturday?
Yeah, he was outstanding last week. I do think it was his best game of the year. I think the Cortica Jug game being right there as well for him. Zach's such a competitor, and he was not happy with himself throwing the interception in the 4th quarter against Grove City. He's very, Zach likes to be challenged. He challenged himself this past week to be better than he was. We were fortunate that our defense forced a turnover right back against Grove City, so Zach could have another chance to go down the field and try and punch it in to win the game, which we did. But yeah, last week Zach was great. He was seeing the field well. He's like a point guard out there. I try to coach our quarterbacks to to have a point guard mentality, not a shooting guard mentality, and just be a distributor of the football. He was seeing the field very well, and when he's making plays, Favre is a good comparison. He's a big Josh Allen guy, though. Zach's from Buffalo, so Josh Allen's
fair enough.
is his guy. But us older guys know what Favre was like. Gunslinger, fearless. Zach is like that. Very fearless.
Yeah. Likes
competition. He wants the ball in his hands. And he's not afraid to make any throw. And if he makes a mistake, he's very self-competitive, very self-competitive. He wants to right those wrongs and to make up for it. So he's fun to coach for sure.
So, Coach, I got to ask you, how are you going to kind of up the game from last week? Because we have a set of photos here from is this the Big House in Ann Arbor? And I mean, then also the Michigan facility as well. It looks like there, you guys practicing in. There's Zach getting a throw in.
Sweet. And
the guys overall just having a good time there. How did that all come to be? And what do you do for an encore down in Ashland for this?
So down in Ashland right now, it's 60 and sunny out today. So we're not looking for an indoor facility necessarily to practice in. That's the one key of going down to Virginia for a semifinal game is we don't get the Cortland Northeast weather. But yeah, last week it was an awesome experience. We have a Cortland alumni who is very high up. Rob Rodemaker, very high up in the Michigan athletic department, who was able to hook us up with that. Another alumni, Connor Griffin, who was able to show us around. Connor is a Cortland baseball alum. So it was awesome, to be on the field, to be in that stadium. It was great to see the players. They were like little kids again, walking down the tunnel and getting out in the field and, running down the sideline, throwing up the Heisman pose awesome. Like they're Desmond Howard, all that stuff. It was cool. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. And so we're competing and trying to win and advance in the tournament and do it. But we're also, you can't lose sight of the fact that we're creating memories that these guys and our players and coaches will remember for the rest of their lives. So it was great to be able to do some of that and make it a great experience and then win the game too, which was, kind of the cherry on the top.
Yeah. Well, so I have one follow-up here. I'm making the drive. I'm coming down, and this is a very odd scenario for me because I'm going to Virginia twice in a 6-day period, basically, but I do have to pop back up because I'm a politician or something, and I'm required to be at a meeting on Monday. So I am coming down to see this game. I've never been to Randolph-Macon, to Ashland before, and I'm excited to see that. I'm excited for 60-degree weather as well. But more than anything else, I'm excited to see one of these two teams get into the Stag Bowl because this is the first of a kind for us. And I want you to have an opportunity because I know you watch and listen to a lot of things out there. You're very astute with you're in having all the knowledge of what's going on in this whole D3 world we're in. But there's a lot of crapping going on the right side of the bracket. Essentially, people are saying, congratulations to the winner of this game. You'll be the runner-up in the Stag Bowl, and leave it at that pretty much. What is your message to folks that is kind of take that approach, that mentality here? Because there's a lot of it going on. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. What would my message be? It's we try not to focus on that. I try not to focus on that. Obviously, you see some of that stuff, and it's obvious that North Central and Warburg are outstanding teams. I just try not to get into all that, and I hope our players and any player on our side on the side of the bracket that we've been on listen to that stuff because you don't want to suck the joy out of it for the players and our players and Randolph-Macon's players and all you don't want to take away the joy of their accomplishment. We try to, in our program, we talk about inputs versus outputs, and we want to be input focused. We want to focus on what we can control. It's a cliche, but it's true. We can't control anyone on the other side of the bracket. We can't control Randolph-Macon. We can't control what their fans say on Twitter or whatever. It really doesn't matter to us. We're just trying to be the best we can be. And if we do that, then we'll live with any outcomes. We're just trying to play the best game of the year, our best game of the year tomorrow against Randolph-Macon. And if we're fortunate enough to move on, then we're going to try and play our best game of the year next week. And the outcomes are going to be what they are. Our focus is on being the best we can be. The brackets are the brackets, and we don't control that. We just try to. We're happy to be in the tournament and play who we play. And I just some of the stuff for the players. I'm going to speak for the players on all teams. On from the East, these kids work extremely hard and work extremely hard to get here. I just don't understand why people have to make it negative on social media or it doesn't need to be negative. Celebrate your team. Don't make it negative for anybody else. That's not what it's about.
Well, Coach, you got a lot of community 100%. Support coming here. And I got one note here from Cortland Mayor Scott Steve, who wanted me to let you know in the statement, the city of Cortland is proud to recognize the hard work of Coach Fitzpatrick. His hard work and determination has allowed him the honor of receiving the American Football Coaches Association D3 Region 1 Coach of the Year. With this great coaching and dedicated, talented players, this has allowed our C-State football program to its first semifinals. From downtown Cortland, we will be viewing and cheering them on with tremendous pride. Go Dragons. From Scott Steve, your mayor in Cortland. Got to know him when I went down for the Brockport game early in the season. Good to have that community support, I'm sure.
Oh, it's awesome. Community is very excited. Yeah, they're closing down Central Ave in downtown Cortland and having an outdoor watch party. Big giant screen for the community to come out and support. It's amazing. We're Cortland's a college town, and just to see the outpouring of support on campus and in the community is awesome. Our players feel that, our coaches feel that. So we're just trying to play our best to make everybody proud tomorrow.
Coach, we've held you long enough here. We appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of that 65-degree day down in Ashland. I will see you tomorrow, and we'll see who wins this game and gets to the Stag Bowl.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck, Coach.
Curt Fitzpatrick joining us from Ashland,
Beat me
Virginia.
to it, Frank. I was going to ask him the exact same question because I am sick and tired of hearing that the national championship game was last weekend. Sorry guys, it's on Friday night on the 15th. I mean, there's still teams and players and coaches that are working their butts off. I mean, yeah, maybe the end of the day, North Central is such a heavy favorite that it's a matter of time. But you can't take away it's still a national semifinal game that these guys have worked their butts off since August. And talking to Coach Fitz too, it's like this game from last season's playoff was sort of the catalyst for this run that Cortland's on. So it even goes back, like a whole 12 months in a year. You can't crap on that. That is a legit thing, and so I'm happy you asked them that question, and I'm hoping that people will realize that. And it sounds like someone's trying to burn my house down or mow it down or something. I don't know what's going on there.
I can hear it too.
I'm gonna go on mute for yikes.
Why don't I tell everybody about the left side of the bracket and how we got to where we are now, and that'll take a few minutes while you go see what the hell's going on outside your house at this point probably. But let's first talk about North Central versus La Crosse. First quarter, 3:27 left, and they thought they had Joe Sacco. They thought wrong, did La Crosse, as Joe Sacco gets an 80-yard touchdown run. Should have been taken down for a loss in this play, but instead, look at him cross over there and get that touchdown for a 14-7 North Central lead. Then second quarter, 4:11 left. Here's Charles Coleman getting a 1-yard touchdown run. That made things a little interesting, not so much, 28-7 in favor of North Central. But here is what makes things interesting. One play later, it's Jack Studer getting an 80-yard touchdown pass from Kaiser Heltebrand. And that's a big play because it kept them in the ball game, 28-14. La Crosse trailed. But look, North Central's Joey Lombardi and company say we're going to take one more shot here before halftime, and this 21-yard touchdown pass from D'Angelo Hardy, as it was halfback option, made it 35-14 in favor of North Central at halftime. We'll fast forward to 1:03 left third quarter. Kaiser Heltebrand gets a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 41-28 in favor of North Central. And then 11:19 left in the fourth quarter. You're going to see Kaiser Heltebrand just slice right through and then go straight to the sideline in celebration here, as they've cut it to 41-35 at that point. And it's getting close. It's getting uncomfortable for North Central, but 5:02 left in the fourth quarter. Luke Lannon showing why he is a finalist for the Glardy Trophy as he stiff arms and jumps and gets into the end zone. It's 48-35 in favor of North Central. 4.5 minutes later, though, Jack Studer, a 2-yard touchdown pass from Kaiser Heltebrand, made it 48-42. That meant that we would see an onside kick attempt here by La Crosse, as this was their only hope left, and you'll see D'Angelo Hardy cleanly field it and run it in because it wasn't a muff, and as such, it is advanceable at that point, and it's a win by North Central by the final score of 50. Well, we'll see in a second here. I think, yes, there it is, 55-42 in favor of North Central. Kaiser Heltebrand, 436 total yards, 3 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 interceptions, though. And D'Angelo Hardy, a rushing, a passing, kickoff return touchdown, also had an INT on defense, I guess. I didn't see that one myself, but I'm going to trust JB on that information there. Then also we have Whitewater at Wartburg. Second quarter, 12:21 left. Whitewater's Tommy Coates gets a 5-yard touchdown pass from Alec Ogden, and that made it 21-3 Whitewater. As JB said, he thought he had a 4-0 weekend right at this point, but Wartburg said, not so fast, my friend. 4.5 minutes later, it is Hunter Clausen, Turbo, with a 12-yard touchdown pass from Now McLaughlin to make it 21-10. Then the defense steps up for Wartburg. No surprise there, I guess, as you're going to see Owen Grover chase down and swat the ball out, and it's landed on by Justin Grief, and that gives Wartburg an opportunity here toward halftime to make it closer, and Carter Henry gets a 5-yard touchdown pass from Now McLaughlin, make it 21-17, Whitewater still leading at halftime. We will go to the third quarter, 9:21 left, and Turbo, Hunter Clausen, with the 1-yard touchdown run to give Wartburg their first lead of the game, 24-21. But Whitewater would try to come back in this game themselves. Fourth quarter, 8:11 left. Tommy Coates, a 7-yard touchdown pass from Alec Ogden, made it 28-24 Whitewater. We'd go deep into the fourth quarter, but Hunter Clausen, Turbo, gets the 7-yard touchdown pass on that big turnaround there by McLaughlin, 31-28. That it really makes things look like it's going to be Wartburg, but you can see Whitewater did advance to midfield, and Alec Ogden, you'll see he's out of the picture here, but eventually passes the ball, and in the middle of your picture, it's intercepted. Preston Rochford with that interception, it ends the game. Wartburg wins in the comeback, 31-28, as Whitewater blows an 18-point lead in this game. And with 12:21 left in the second quarter, Turbo, 162 total yards, 1 rushing, 2 receiving touchdowns in the game. And JB, quite a game that was. All the games had some drama to them. Maybe North Central seemed like they were going to win no matter what there, even though it came down to an onside kick to make sure it settled out. But the other 3 games really were in doubt until really the fourth quarter in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and it sort of followed suit that, there were some very competitive games on the left side of the bracket, just like we saw on the right. And for all you North Central fans that think that I hate you guys, look, I even got the red on. So I mean, we don't hate any teams. We just want fans to be respectful, right? So I got my Cardinal red on, and this is actually a great shirt that I got from Naperville. So thanks. And so this quarterfinal round, the D'Angelo Hardy show was on. He intercepted I think it was like a Hail Mary pass at the end of the first half, so that's where he got this interception. But yeah, a rushing, passing touchdown, and the basically kind of like a scoop and score on the onside kick attempt. So what what a full run for him. And I think there was an interesting article about him in, I think, the Chicago Tribune or one of the local papers about all the adversity he's had in his life, some losses in his family, and he's trying to potentially play professionally after his college career is over. He's overcome a lot, but close call for them with a awesome performance by the Eagles and Kaiser Helterbrand, who's been one of the best players in the nation all year. Once again, though, we kind of joked with Coach Fitz about turnover margin. The couple of interceptions, probably didn't help the Eagles' cause. But at the end of the day, a fantastic game there. And as Frank said at the top of the show, all very competitive games, 2 decided by 3 points. 3 of the 4 winners were on the road, and we got some familiar faces with North Central making their 4th consecutive semifinal appearance, Wartburg's 2nd consecutive, but we also have Cortland and Randolph-Macon with their first time. So what a great quarterfinal round we had, some exciting games, and can't wait to see what happens in the semifinals. But as we talked with Coach Fitz, we had to give this sophomore wide receiver Joe how do you pronounce the name, Frank?
Iadivo.
I'm not going to
Iadivo, I think he said in his interview. Yeah.
Iadivo, maybe. So this guy is like, 3rd or 4th wide receiver, maybe even lower than that. It sounds like he worked his way up the depth chart from number 5 or 6 to catch 3 touchdowns and really keep Cortland in that, shootout back and forth game, a huge game for him. And, that's sometimes what happens in playoff games, when you've got receivers like Lapp and Burgess. I mean, Lapp still had about 172 yards receiving and had a big game, but it was Joey here. I love the diamond earrings in the photo. Those are pretty sweet. Who caught those 3 touchdowns, which they needed every single one of those in this game. From special teams, my MVP was the guy who kicked the game winner. Kyle, is it Illy or Isle? We've got some tough last names this week, Frank. And they're Illy, okay, from Randolph-Macon, and he might have to be called upon to kick a game winner again, because I have a feeling that this Cortland-Randolph-Macon game is going to be tight all the way down to the wire. And then, I had to kind of show some brotherly love here, and it's interesting. I mean, there's the Grover brothers on the Knights, and we also have the Rochford brothers. Parker had the big interception that sealed the win, and his older brother, the graduate 5th-year linebacker Preston, led the Knights with, I think, 11 or 12 tackles in the big win against Whitewater. Once again, the Knights are back in the semifinals for the 2nd year in a row, and those 2 guys, plus the Grover brothers, are going to have their hands full with this really great offense. And look at this, talking about close calls down to the wire. We each went 3-1. So I've somehow managed to eke out a 1-point lead for a couple of weeks now. But to be fair, and I'm going to my little notebook here, Frank has had the better playoff run. You are 26-2 in your picks for the playoffs. I am 25-3. I think technically at this stage in the season I can't lose. We can maybe tie, assuming that I'm making a couple of assumptions depending, but it's going to come down to the wire here. We'll see what happens.
Well, you're making an assumption on what we're going to pick, and that might not be true. So let's actually do what we're supposed to do here and pick the games.
What they say assumptions do, right?
Yeah. Well, let's go to the first tail of the tape here for one of these games, and that's going to be North Central Wartburg, and we did not run down this one. North Central with about 122-yard advantage offensively on average. Defensively, basically a dead heat within a yard of each other. Luke Lanin with 54 touchdowns, 11 on the ground, 1 interception versus 38 touchdowns and 9 interceptions for Niall McLaughlin. So a few more mistakes there. 31 to 5 in terms of turnovers for and against for North Central for a plus 26. 31-21 for a plus 10 for Wartburg. And look at that, point differential still for North Central, plus 47.5. Obviously, last week sort of made things a little closer in that realm, but not by much. Wartburg, plus 30.9. And so, JV, the question of questions becomes here, who do we pick? And I'm going to say, I will start, I guess, on this one. First, that we need to stop cutting your head off, so make sure you kind of lower yourself there. Yeah, there he goes. There he goes. Little production right on screen there for you. On the left side, North Central at Wartburg. I am going to go, I believe I actually have this right up on my screen here. North Central 41, Wartburg 30. And here's what I write in quick hits. What we learned last week is that North Central does have some vulnerabilities on defense. This presented itself slightly in other higher profile games this season, but the lacrosse game magnified it a bit more. Yet until a team can figure out how to dismantle the NCC offense, they aren't going to be losing a game this year. While I applaud the job the Wartburg defense has done this season, I don't see them able to keep North Central out of the end zone repeatedly. As a result, while I expect a somewhat close game, North Central will pull away in the second half and win this game. 41-30. What do you think?
Well, what I'm just curious, and we didn't really talk about it much, but when you look at the tail of the tape, the thing that jumps off the page to me is that this Cardinals offensive line helps them rush for almost 340 yards a game, and Wartburg's defense holds teams to basically 40 yards rushing per game. Something's got to give here. It'll be interesting to see if Wartburg can bottle up that run game and force Luke Lennon to either have to run the ball himself or maybe find Hardy or whomever he can that's open. I think this will be a challenge for the Cardinals, but at the end of the day, I think their offense is just a little too explosive, a little too strong. So I will go with North Central to win it. Maybe a little bit lower scoring, like a 38-21 type of game. Lower scoring. Right.
Yeah,
still 60-something points total, but
last week,
lower scoring for them when they put up 62 or on average or whatever.
What was the total offense across the country in 4 games last weekend? It was crazy. Just crazy the amount of offense we saw on every game. Okay, right side, Cortland, Randolph-Macon. You will start this one. I'll put up the tail of the tape. We already went over it, though, so we won't go into it word for word here, but we'll have it on the screen for you. Who do you pick here in the Cortland-Randolph-Macon matchup?
Yeah, this is interesting because when I did my bracket at whenever, the end of week 11 when that came out, I had Randolph-Macon beating Mount Union in the national semifinals to go to the Stag Bowl. That's what I thought from day one, and so part of me is like, well, you should just stick with that pick. They're the home team, like you said, that's like a 2.5 point bump there. They've beaten Cortland once in the playoffs last season. Cortland's had an amazing run, but can they keep it going? But then I watched this Cortland team just keep fighting and putting out. They've got so many offensive weapons. At this point, I feel like this game could go either way. I like sort of like a 3-point margin. I think it'll probably be like a 42-39 or a 45-42 type of game. I think there's going to be a lot of offense, a lot of scoring. But for some reason, I want to pick Cortland again because I got them. I was the only person, and I don't think anyone on D3Football.com picked Cortland last week. So I was right then. But I'm also sort of like, well, I picked Randolph-Macon from day one, so maybe I'll just stick with the Yellow Jackets. No disrespect to Cortland. It's just one of those things. It's like the home team. Although then again, last week all the home teams lost. I don't know, Frank. Can I do a push?
No. Come on.
I'll stick with
it. Sounds like you're picking Macon.
I'll stick with. Yeah, I will. Maybe that'll help the Dragons prove me wrong. Come on, guys. Let's see what you got.
Okay, so I'm locked in when we come into this situation because I write for quick hits and I've got to stick with my pick.
I don't actually look at that.
I know, but
from time to time.
I can't change. But I can't change right now because obviously I look like a fool more so than I normally do. So here is what I wrote, and then I'll tell you who I officially pick score-wise. Last week's games on this side of the bracket were extraordinary, but we also learned some things beneath the fold. First, the Cortland defense was able to shake the game up at Alma, especially in the second half. Allowing just one touchdown after the first half scorefest was a big difference maker. For Randolph-Macon, it was clear that the team is weathering injuries on the offensive side of the ball. As a result, I think this game plays out similar to how the Cortland-Alma game played out last week, lots of offense in spurts, and an eventual ability for the Cortland defense to make enough adjustments to win the game. I have it as Cortland 40, Randolph-Macon 34. We have a difference here, and I can tie you this week.
Wow, okay.
If they win.
Yes,
if they don't, you win it outright.
Win.
It's all yours. So this game will decide essentially how our pick'ems go for this season right here with the one-game differential. And that is kind of funny. I had a feeling you might go this way.
I was so close to flipping. Yeah.
Well, I did. I have them as in my surprises and disappointments as one of the final four teams. But when you go watch the game and you notice certain things, like Drew Campanelli threw a ball out of bounds on a fourth down play, way off. And I think there's a little... I understand, fighting or living to fight another down type of situation, but even on a fourth down situation last week, throwing that ball away, I don't get it. And there were a lot of opportunities for him to, maybe make plays on an extended play with this offensive line, but he did throw balls away, and I don't know what's going on there. And obviously, it's chronicled that their running back situation has a little of injury situation in there too. So I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at Cortland, who seems to be, at least offensively, pretty well...
Peaking.
Yeah, healed up. Yeah. Zach Boyes and J.J. Lapp and Aya DeVio, I guess, or whatever, however we pronounce his name. We'll get that right eventually. And, Lapp and Burgess and all that. I feel like I said Lapp 13 times, but maybe whatever. But and then having Jane Alfano St. John. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I mean,
That's the whole thing. You've got so many weapons there, and even if they had an injury, maybe except to Zach Boyes, they could continue to do what they do. So that's why I kind of have changed, now the playoffs are being played out that way, who I'm going for. But, hey, I could be wrong.
I think it would be awesome to have an upstate... Yeah, I would love it if there was an upstate New York team in the Stag Bowl. I mean, when was the last time that happened? Ithaca or Union in the late 80s, maybe? I know Union played in like 89 or something like that. One of my good friends growing up, his older brother played for that Union team that made it to the Stag Bowl. So it's been a long, long time. I think, was it 2003 maybe when the Cardinals of St. John Fisher made it to the Final Four that one year? It's been 20 years since we've had a East team, go this far in the tournament. So I'm excited for it. I would love to see, Cortland go to the next round. I guess I'm just trying to, who knows? I probably should have picked the Dragons, but maybe they'll prove me wrong. But I think it's great for D3 football. It's nice to see that there will be somebody different in the Stag Bowl, even if North Central wins and basically wins their, keeps the dynasty rolling, which is, based on how they've looked. And I talked to the coach earlier this week who kind of reinforced what I thought I saw from a fan tweet, basically saying that, they focused in on this Chicagoland area where there's only, 10 to 15 upper division schools in the whole greater area. They're really doing a great job recruiting that and getting people to buy into this system and buy into this program, and it's given them a competitive advantage. And so, they've been able to exploit that, and there's no reason why they're the big favorites. But there are still three other teams alive in this tournament, and all of them are great teams, and you never know, any given Saturday, anything can happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they all play out. And it should be a fantastic game. ESPN Plus or whatever.
So last time an East Region team, an actual East Region team back in the old four-region setup, was in the Stag Bowl, was Rowan in 1999, I believe, because Bridgewater was considered a South Region team at the time in 2001.
South,
So I don't see anything else at that before that. Now, a New York team, as you're pointing out, I'm going backward here. W&J was a South Region team, I think, in the pack back when, too, in 1994, just as a curiosity point, and in 1992. W&J has been to the Stag Bowl twice in the early 90s, which a lot of people forget about. But going back to the New York team, as you're pointing out, Union in 1989 was the last time. Ithaca won it, though, in 1988. That's the last East Region team to win a Stag Bowl. back in 1988. You're talking 35 years since an East Region team won the Stag Bowl, or a New York team won the Stag Bowl. Ultimately, Rowan had a lot of opportunities, but just could never win the game. Right? So. Yep. A lot of history on the line here, and go back if you're just joining us and hear the answer to the question about the left side of the bracket being the automatic de facto Stag Bowl champion. Curt Fitzpatrick, I think, answered it respectfully on our show earlier today.
Yeah,
Thanks to him for joining us. I'm going to start the trek down toward Virginia a little bit later on this afternoon, heading to New York first, and then we'll finish it out tomorrow morning early. So we'll see where it goes. But JB, how are you going to watch this? You basically kind of let the cat out of the bag again. It's ESPN Plus, and so you get to watch one game at a time. Yeah. But are both games worth watching for you? Are you going to just sit there all day and watch these things?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if even if you can't afford or want to pay for ESPN Plus, there's great audio broadcasts. I know that the Randolph-Macon, the Hanover Sports Group does a nice job, calling the games on the radio, as well as you'll get the same thing for the Wartburg game. So there's a couple of different ways you can consume this, and yeah, I'll probably either be watching it on my TV at home or with a thing in my ear if I've been told to run out and do some errands. We'll see. Got some family in town, so I'll be busy. Kind of juggling that. But yeah, it'll be nice. You'll have about an hour break in between the two games, so you can load up on wings or pizza or whatever your football watching meal of choice is, and sit back and watch the four best teams in the country go at it. It'll be great.
I'll be listening to Game 2, obviously, in my drive back toward New York after the game is done, so I'll have some company. Michael Reggie, I think it is, will be the play-by-play announcer for the Cortland Randolph-Macon game. I'm not sure who the crew is for the Western game, we'll call it, later on, the North Central Wartburg game. But one last thing, we want to pay quick honor here to the 5 finalists for the Ghilardi Trophy that we announced yesterday. Again, we started the show talking about it. We'll end the show talking about it briefly here. Luke Lanen, junior quarterback from North Central College. Also, Braxton Plunk, the senior quarterback from the University of Mount Union. We got it right this time. Jake Breitbach, the senior wide receiver from Gustavus Adolphus. Thank you. Yep, got it down this time. Owen Grover, the senior linebacker from Wartburg College. And the surprise 5th finalist, and he was thrilled, I can tell you that for a fact, yesterday. Tucker Horn, senior quarterback of Trinity of Texas. And so congratulations to them. We will be naming the winner in some format or another next week at the Stag Bowl during the pregame show in Salem, Virginia. Do you have a prediction? I always ask you this, but who do you predict will get this thing?
Well, it's funny when you have it could go. I can see it going two ways, right? So there's the one way where it's just like they give it to the guy who has maybe the best chance of actually playing in the Stag Bowl, who theoretically from our picks is Lanen. But I have a feeling in a group where it's 4 offensive players and 1 defensive player, I think they might throw us a curveball and give it to the linebacker. Owen Grover. He was at the, what was that award that was in Vegas?
Campbell Award. Campbell.
Is that the Campbell Trophy? Yeah, he went. Yeah, so he flew out to Vegas during the big. I mean, maybe that was, I understand, doing that for the honor and all that. I don't know how it disrupted the practice schedule or anything, but he's probably so good, you don't have to worry about it. The committee has surprised us in the past where it looks like all offense and then they go with a defensive guy. I don't know. We'll see. Those are my initial thoughts right off the top.
We shall see.
Yeah, I know I have a biased favorite who I would pick, but we don't want to know about
that. No biases on this show. No. Well, folks, this will be an exciting weekend. As we did this week, we will go toward essentially Stag Bowl morning and give you a show to lead up to the actual Stag Bowl on Friday, live from Salem. And so you'll want to join us for that as well. So, JB, always fun, always a good time here with you, and thanks to Curt Fitzpatrick again, and for everybody that joined us.
Yeah.
Let's watch the semifinals. Who's getting to the Stag Bowl? Stag Bowl 50 in Salem. Coming up here this weekend. We'll see you next week and on Twitter throughout the weekend.